certainly, I'm just blessed and I'm so happy to see you again. And to all our viewers, we are here again. We want to thank you for allowing us to come to your homes tonight. And so we want to welcome everyone to Making Money Matter. And of course, it's all about building generational wealth the Kingdom way. And, for our viewers, you don't want to miss these dynamic programs because you can catch us every week on YouTube. Of course, if you got questions, we sure do have some answers. Tonight's let's just shift our focus on protecting legacies. God spoke to me about basically protecting our money and our people. And what do I mean by that? I mean people specifically of color, people who are in the kingdom, but in particular, like I said, people of color, because we know the statistics. We see them often on the news, and so it's nothing new at all. So essentially, what we want to do is to define or redefine what our futures look like as we age as well. So, but for now, I feel this is very important about this particular part that we must learn new ways to navigate the systems that are already been set up and they're in place. Because Dr. Michelle, some people benefit. They from the time of their birth, they benefit from specific systems that have been set up. So, what would you say to that?
Yeah, well, again, it's a pleasure to be here with you all tonight. The scripture that comes to mind is, a wise man will leave an inheritance to his children and his children's children. So when you think about certain people benefiting from systems that are in place, that means a forefather thought about what would finances look like for my family years from now, a decade, 2, 3 decades from now. And so we all have to be cognizant of what the end goal is. And that is, as you said it a moment ago, to leave a legacy for our children and our children's children. And so I think there's never been a time where so much resource and abundance is available for us through information, whether it's internet, whether it's seminars, workshops, social media, where if we ever wanted to create legacy that could be sustained over generations, this is the era for us doing that. And so people just need to grab a hold of what's readily available and execute on that.
I feel like honestly, with the information highway, as we've heard many times, we're left without excuse. This generation, I feel like we can make so many inroads now that even that our ancestors weren't able to do,
So
even
true.
a couple of generations ago. And for me, it's one generation ago. My parents, having been raised during the Jim Crow era. Okay, but again, because a lot of times our people have been traditionally, they've been targeted, predatory lending, and some, of course, even with credit scores and things like that. Some have great credit scores, but even still were targeted. People will often take away the opportunities that they did have from, they labored, they put in the work, they
Mhm.
paid their bills, all of that, and it still at times worked against them merely because of the color of their skin. So let's talk a little bit about your situation. I remember
Mhm.
Dr. Michelle, you was telling me not long ago what happened to you, and I certainly do believe that we can use your experience
Mhm.
in a way that can help others. And so let's talk about some things here. And for the viewers, we're going to be real and just going to be raw. And so we just have to face reality as it is. So, what are some ways, if you want to share your story, and then what are ways that we can fight discrimination in the banking, credit, and housing marketplaces?
Absolutely. So, God has blessed me to be fortunate enough to rise, into the top 5% income earners in the nation. And we were seeking out a home in a community that we wanted to live in on purpose, for the
Mhm.
growth value and opportunity to be able to leverage that from the home and equity. And we were going through that process. We're entrepreneurial, so our income is documented and scrutinized even the more. But with all of the ducks in a row, with everything in place, even with unnecessary requests to have uh, uh, um, what did he call it, an audited audit or something of that nature from our CPA, or a CPA that wasn't our regular CPA, just took us through a lot of hoops and hurdles to ultimately realize that what we were dealing with was racial. It was discriminatory, and our lender at the time, went on to make, several comments that were
Mm.
racist. Never did he engage us with eye contact, shake our hand.
Oh my
It
God.
just was obvious from the beginning that he didn't want us buying in this community. And ultimately, he won. He was victorious in that. Our loan was pushed off the table 1 week of getting ready to close. And we had given up our apartment. Well, we actually were in a rental home. We had given up our rental home. No. We were in an apartment then. So, because we had to end up getting into a rental home before this house. So, we were in an apartment. We had given that up. And that summer, we were just traveling because we knew we wouldn't be closing until like right around back to school. So, we just get out, move around. And the week of our closing, I was talking with a friend and she said, well, you guys should have already spoken to the attorney. He's, you're within 3 days. You should have talked to the attorney about the closing date and all of that. And so we had not. And so I reached out to the loan officer and he was not replying. No
Oh,
text, no response, no call. So I reached out again to the realtor and he said, oh, he didn't tell you? And I'm like, didn't tell me what? And so now I'm concerned. And ultimately, the realtor said, well, let me get you over to the manager. And so I spoke to the manager who was new to that office, only to find out that our loan officer had closed our file and
mm,
he had written unfinanceable on the file. The manager never opened it, never anything, but he said that we were not able to be financed because we had a foreclosure, which was not correct. And so, the sad part is I think he did it on purpose. And
mhm,
now here we are displaced, my family and I, our daughter's getting ready to go into kindergarten, and we got to try to figure out where we're going to live because school is starting back. And so we had to go into renting again. But those types of things, Rosalind, happen nationwide all the time. And,
mhm,
you mentioned predatory lending. That's what drove us to the 2008 market crash. But
mhm.
even today it's happening. Why? Because only 8% of mortgage loan officers are brown. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a fact. Only 6% of realtors are Black. So when
Mhm.
we look at our reality, a lot of times around home ownership, it's just we're not in control and there's too much discretion in the hands of other people.
Mm. And I think too, we have, and I've had it. Once you said that, it's like a light came on, and I thought, wow, I believe I've been through that as well. And it's just little things like, oh, we don't have any houses open right now, or we don't have anything on the market, or I heard it you're applying for this loan. There's something happened in the neighborhood. There was some break-ins, things, just little subtle things like
Those
that.
subtle things,
Uh,
and
yeah,
that's how you can
yeah.
identify. The
Mhm,
enemy comes to kill, steal, and destroy, and he'll use people to
mhm,
deter us.
mhm.
And a lot of times, if you are even wanting to look at properties in certain communities, they won't let you just
Yes,
because there's a gatekeeper, right?
yes.
And it isn't fair, and that's
No,
why even I'm so elated to partner with you with 75 for all, because our mission is to eradicate all of that, take those stigmas off the table, and
yeah,
let us be community loan officers and bring resources to people without any discrimination or intentionally holding people back.
yes. And so I want to plug in a little something right there. To our viewers, you are listening to a blessed woman of God, first of all, but recently she became national director
Mhm.
for debt cleanse. Or you tell them a little bit about. We want to celebrate her tonight. She doesn't know anything about this. I
Yeah,
feel
wow.
lucky,
Well,
but
I'm
I
honored.
want to congratulate you. I can't tell you how excited I was when I saw your post,
Wow.
and I said, "Look at this girl, this woman." I won't say girl, but look at
Yeah.
this woman. Tell them all about it, Dr. Michelle, because sometimes people think, "Oh, is this really real?" No,
Yeah,
you're
it's
walking.
really real.
You know,
I'm raised in the South, so we call it grit in the South. But I am just a big advocate for um, financial literacy
yeah,
and how it can transform our community. And so I am a part of an amazing, amazing movement called 75 for All, powered by Debt Cleanse, which is a home ownership initiative. And it's designed to bring awareness to those that don't know what is out there available. It's designed to help people become mortgage ready. And by introducing people and, sharing, in this beautiful, beautiful movement, I've been able to elevate to the title of national director, which is the top of the company. Couldn't have done that without a team. You're part of that team. Couldn't have done that without individuals, who are like mine and want to serve. But even bigger than the title is our mission, and
Yeah.
our mission is to help 1 million families over the next 5 years. And getting there, of course, we haven't helped a million families yet, but even as we clear in on the holidays, we're focusing on home for the holidays. We were recently, you and I together,
Yes.
we did a workshop, but we want to really educate people about what home ownership is all about, why you should desire it over renting, what the long-term outcomes are. And in doing
Right.
that, we've just been able to really build a solid business here. So for people out there that are wondering, can I own a home? Yes, you can. Do you need to
Yeah.
earn some extra money? We can help you with that. But it's just been an honor to serve people in this capacity. And I know we're just getting started. And I'm excited about that.
I believe that. And so, like I said, Dr. Michelle, she didn't know I was going to mention all this, but I'm going to tell you what, Dr. Michelle.
Mm,
We can sit here, we can talk about race, gender, all this, all the things that we've seen happen, but there is a light to me. This is the bright light that is at the end of the tunnel, but not necessarily at the end of the tunnel, but this is the light that lights our way. This is, to me, it's the light in darkness. Maybe a lot of our listeners, you may be feeling like, well, will we ever get out of debt, or will we ever achieve the dream of home ownership? We're here to tell you that it is possible.
yes,
And Dr. Michelle, she is living proof. She's living and walking and breathing that dream. Up next, we'll hear more of the conversation with Dr. Michelle Kofer, business coach, featured in NBC, CBS, and ABC. This program is brought to you by Restored Living Financial. We believe that everyone deserves to have a home, and our home ownership program is a nationwide initiative to increase the home ownership rate to 75% for all Americans. And we help aspiring homeowners achieve the dream of homeownership. And we're hard at work for you. Let us help you find your dream home. Welcome home. Make it happen now. Restore Living Financial. And now, Making Money Matter continues. And so, because we can talk about all, like I said, all the other things about racial disparities, all of that. But sometimes we just need to have a story about hope that, you know what,
mm-hmm,
you can make it, I can make it.
mm-hmm,
You did it, I did it. And this
mm-hmm,
opportunity that she's talking about, it's available. And so, as we move on in this program tonight, there's ways I believe that we can overcome, poverty, the gaps in, poverty gaps, all kinds of disparities. We can overcome that. So, is there any way, as we get ready to close out here, that you believe, Dr. Michelle, what we can do as far as arming ourselves with knowledge? I was just reading this real quickly. I was just reading. I think it's a report from, I think it was 2021 or something like that.
mm-hmm.
And I wanted to mention it here because I thought it was really good. It says there's a majority of Black adults who say voting and supporting Black businesses are effective ways to move toward equality.
It is.
So voting was the 63%. Supporting Black-owned businesses is like 58% of those who were polled. Volunteering was 48%. Protesting, which 42%, and contacting our elected officials. So I don't want to get too, not necessarily getting political here, but who we vote for, we do have to hold them accountable. What would you say to that, Dr. Michelle?
Yeah, I concur. When you think about the political climate, the social climate, the economic climate, they're all intertwined. And so we have to drive the agendas that impact our community through activism. Voter apathy is at an all-time high in our
Yeah.
community, but at least we render our voice, and as you mentioned, once we've rendered our voice, and those people that agree to represent our voice, we do have to hold them accountable, because the resources that are needed for our communities, minority communities, will come through legislation, will come through people being in positions of hierarchy. So to talk about how do we truly impact change, you've
Mhm.
already touched on it. Number one, we have to be vocal in the political space. But
Mhm.
number two, we also have to be educated about the things available.
Mhm.
There are tons of resources available in our communities. We just don't even know to access them,
Mhm.
and that is because we don't get engaged enough in reading and personal development and attending even free events,
Yeah.
that could educate and empower, watching and listening to shows like this where there are conversations around the things that should matter to us the most. And so
Mhm.
those are ways that we eradicate it. But in the scriptures, it talks about in all of thy getting, get understanding, and that getting
Mhm.
wisdom. We have to seek knowledge and wisdom around the things that will impact our legacy. And
Yeah.
I think even for me, we share this, we didn't come from a silver spoon,
Yeah.
but we sought after education. And for years, Rosalind, hear me right here, for years, I thought education was the way.
Yes.
And until I met reality and found out that education has a point where it stops. And even though you can go out and get master's educated and you can get doctorate degrees and all of that, it's gonna stop what
Mhm.
your earning potential is. So I think ultimately the way that we stimulate our economy is to create more entrepreneurial avenues
Yes. Yes.
through, even like our industry, indirect sales, what people misunderstand. It's a small investment, a big opportunity, but it's a business that multimillionaires and billionaires say, hey, if I had to do it all over again, I would do it that way because of
Yes.
leverage. But we don't understand. And I think that when we stop taking the voice of our friends whose lifestyle we wouldn't want to change, places
Yes.
with, we
Yes.
stop taking their advice and seek out credible professionals, you, myself, others who,
Yes.
who are demonstrating a pathway for
Mhm.
freedom, then
Yes.
that's how we get free. We follow down the pathway of people that has a track record of
Yes.
seeing a light a little bit versus the
Yes.
person who's still walking in darkness. So we got to censor our ear gate, to
Mhm.
make sure that we're not hearing from somebody who, with their lips is saying they want us to make it out, but in their heart is far from it. And so they discourage you to do better in life.
Faith without works is dead, right?
Dead. DEAD dead.
Well,
Dead.
Dr. Michelle, I have certainly enjoyed speaking with you tonight about the topics that we've been covering this evening and the words that we've heard. And we hope that you, our viewers, have really enjoyed our program as far as the knowledge that's being imparted here. We want you to come back again and see us during our next program. So, Dr. Michelle, thank you again.
Thank
And
you.
we wish you all the best in your endeavors and your continued success, and
Likewise.
also your award and everything. So, continue blessings to you as well. And we'll see you all in the next program. Take care. Bye
Take care.
bye.
Bye-bye.
This program was brought to you by Restored Living Financial. Welcome home. Let's go behind the scenes where I attend an event hosted by Dr. Michelle Kofer. You see, we're about giving back to our communities. We both grew up in government housing during part of our childhood, and also I'm very passionate about helping those in our underserved communities. You see, everyone deserves to have a home, and this opportunity abounds and is available to those who qualify and desire to take advantage of it. Again, I do want to commend Dr. Kofer on her dedication and outstanding leadership, for her hard work, and congratulating her on achieving National Director with Debt Cleanse Homeownership Program. God bless in your continued success. Up next on the Restore Living Network, Preserving a Family Legacy. There's nothing older than time itself. And as we all know, time brings about a change. More importantly, it's the memories that we create and the family legacies that live on. And so this is a tribute. whose humble beginnings takes us back to the green rolling hills of Kentucky. A land with rolling hills, where the wind is calm and the grass is so soft. A land that has a story all its own. And so it is we tell this story of an amazing man whose name was George Johnson. This is part of a beautiful story of a family legacy that we want to preserve its memory. Nothing more powerful than telling the stories and passing down information by word of mouth or by written letters, documentaries of the stories of our family and what they contributed to our society, to our lives, from our past, and help in aiding and moving toward our future. When we understand who we are presently, when we understand how far we've come and who we are in this present age, we realize that we didn't get here by ourselves, but it was the foundation that was laid by our ancestors many, many years ago. And so is the story of our great-grandfather, George Johnson. Great-grandfather George Johnson was a man of renown, a man of character, and an honorable Christian man, whom I believe set the tone for the rest of his family and those in his lineage. As each of us listen to this tribute, keep in mind and bear in our hearts and our minds that he set the tone and he produced some amazing offspring who are now continuing in his footsteps. I have been truly blessed to have a family who is God-centered, a legacy of preachers all the way down through 2 generations from his beginnings. Let's talk a little bit about great-grandfather George Johnson. George Alfred Johnson was born August 30th, 1866 in Adair County, Kentucky, to Andrew and Mary Page Johnson, the 5th of 6 children. He had 4 older sisters and a younger brother. He attended school for 4 years, but circumstances caused great-grandfather George to find work as a farmhand in his early teens to provide for the household, as was often the case with many of the young people at that time, and especially for African American young people. Like many African American families at that time, he was born on a farm to parents who were sharecroppers. He also helped raise his younger brother, and at the age of 21, he married Henrietta Scott, and to this union was born 6 children, of whom was my grandfather Rufus, his sisters Aunt Tinchy, Aunt Martha, Aunt Eva, Aunt Elora, and Uncle Hulbert. Grandfather George Johnson was a very distinguished man who was very hardworking and industrious individual. And I believe he passed on that spirit of excellence onto his children. The story goes is that he leased land where he planted apples and pear trees and grafting them together to produce another variety of fruit. The industriousness and the works of his hands were blessed, and God blessed him abundantly. And the success of his orchards allowed him to purchase the land on which he built the family home. He gave his life to Christ at Pleasant Hill Baptist Church at the age of 12. He later joined Greasy Creek Baptist Church, where he was an ordained deacon and Sunday school teacher for 48 years. I was truly blessed to hear the stories of my oldest uncle, whose name was also George Johnson, George Theodore Johnson, who often spoke about our grandfather, George Johnson, George Alfred Johnson, whom he said was an amazing Sunday school teacher and who knew the Word, who was a powerful Bible teacher. And I believe that the legacy of his loving the Word of God paved the way for preachers, for prophets and prophetesses in his bloodline. A man who walks with God will leave a legacy. He will leave a legacy to his children and his children's children. And so it is with our grandfather George Johnson. He was a tireless servant of God and a family man. And Henrietta and he were married he and Henrietta were married for 56 years until his homecoming on June 10th, 1944. And as we honor and pay tribute to our great-grandfather George Johnson, may his memory live on, and may the works of his hands continue throughout the generations. We are, I believe, where we are today because this amazing man walked with God, and the fruit that he produced, not only in the natural, but I truly believe that it produced the fruit, and herein lies within us, that continues throughout his generations. And may he rest in peace, and may we never forget this wonderful man and great-grandfather, George Johnson.